Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Pat's Pulpit Pregame Show. I am Rich Hill, and here with me, as always, is Alex Shane, and we're here to talk about the AFC Championship game between the New England Patriots and Pittsburgh Steelers. Alec, how you doing?
I am all right, my good man. It is the last day of the 2016 NFL calendar where there is more than one football game on TV, and I am just very glad the Patriots are playing one of those two games.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I feel like this was a little bit of destiny. If you asked everyone at the beginning of the season who would be there at the end of it for the AFC, the Patriots were clearly the favorites, wire to wire. But the Raiders made a little bit of a scare for some teams in the middle of the season. But Steelers, Patriots, I think it was meant to be. I don't think anyone really feared the Colts at all. The AFC West kind of was up and down. No one thought that the Broncos would have an offense. The Chiefs are as average as always. The Bengals collapsed. No one really thought that a team in the AFC East would upset the Patriots. I don't know. Is this kind of predictable?
Well, what's weird is, it's very easy to forget the fact that the Patriots and Steelers really haven't met in the postseason that often, which is pretty surprising given these two teams' success historically. I think 2004 in the AFC Championship game was the last time these two teams met in the postseason. That was in Pittsburgh, and the Patriots beat them up. It's just, these teams always seem to be in the playoffs. They always seem to be in the postseason. They made a lot of Super Bowls between the two franchises, and yet this is the first time in a long time they've played each other, and the first time at Gillette. So it's an old game in a lot of ways, but it's a brand new game in a lot of ways too, and I'm excited for it.
No, absolutely. And before we break down that game, let's give a little bit of attention to the NFC Championship game. Kickoff is at 3 p.m. It will be on Fox, and it is between the number 2 seed Atlanta Falcons and the number 4 seed Green Bay Packers. And while the NFC picture was a little bit less predictable, the Seahawks were a good team until they lost Earl Thomas. The Cowboys were a big surprise. I think that everyone can agree that if you had to make a list of the top 3 or 4 MVP candidates this year, Falcons quarterback Matt Ryan would be atop the list, and Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers would be right behind him. So I think that this is going to be a case where you're going to have 2 really great offenses led by 2 of the best quarterbacks in the league, and they're going to be facing 2 of the worst defenses. And so I think that if we're looking for a great game to watch, this is going to be a pretty good one for people who just want to see a good football game.
Yeah, I mean, all signs point to an absolute offensive shootout. The Falcons' offense is borderline unstoppable, and the Packers' offense is also very good. And Aaron Rodgers has that way to Aaron Rodgers himself into spectacular situations. I think that Dallas-Green Bay game last week was one of the best games of the year, maybe not an all-time classic. I haven't really watched too much Falcons football this year, to be honest. It's one of the good teams in the NFL. It's probably the team I have the least amount of personal game tape on. But every time I watch them, every time I see the highlights, they seem to have found a balance in offense and defense. The running game is going very well. Julio Jones is back. Whatever injuries that were ailing him, Matt Ryan is seeing the entire field, unloading the entire offensive playbook. And so, it should be a really, really fun game to watch. And I'm very curious to see how Aaron Rodgers fares at Atlanta. This is the last game of the Georgia Dome, regardless of outcome. The fans are going to be all kinds of fired up. Roger Goodell will be in attendance for the first time since last Saturday, and so it'll be an interesting matchup. And I'm really excited for it.
Oh no, and I think that if you're just an objective observer, this is going to be fun. I'm feeling really good about this one. If you're looking for a New England Patriots angle or just a New England angle, they have former Patriots defensive tackle Joe Villano on the Packers roster. Josh Keys is a linebacker out of Boston College. But I think that this Falcons team, their general manager is Tom Dimitroff, former Patriots exec, and now he's the general manager over there. The assistant general manager is Scott Pioli. So if you're watching how this Falcons team is built, you're going to see a lot of similarities to how the Patriots organization is run. And I think that there's no surprise that you look at this Falcons team. They have 2 really good running backs, if that sounds familiar to you. They have a bunch of depth at wide receiver. And I know that they have a really top-tier talent in Julio Jones, but Mohamed Sanu was a player that the Patriots really, really, really wanted to sign in free agency. They were outbid for him by the Falcons. And so it just shows the common interest in both of them. But I think that the unheralded battle between the Packers and the Falcons will be their offensive lines, because both of these groups are playing like top 5 units. The Falcons have invested a lot into that. They acquired Alex Mack, who Patriots fans should know a little bit because their 3rd round compensatory pick from the Browns hinged upon Alex Mack playing the entire year. He did, and so the Patriots will now get a 3rd round pick in the 2017 draft in exchange for Jamie Collins. So that's something that Patriots fans should have been keeping an eye on. But I think looking at this, catches your eye out of the Falcons and Packers that you and the Patriots favorable?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You look at these two teams in the NFC, and the way the Falcons are playing right now, the way the Packers are playing right now. The Packers are one of those teams, they remind me, I hate to say this, but they kind of remind me a bit of the 2007, 2011 Giants, where they go on the road, they pull some ridiculousness out of who knows where, and they win on grit and toughness. You know, that's the team we wrote off. I wrote them off in the middle of the season. They dropped 4 straight. No one was talking about them then. But they just find a way to win. And Aaron Rodgers can do things that, including Tom Brady, no other quarterback in the league can do. He just got that ability. Some of the throws he's able to make, some of the plays he's able to make with his legs. And I think that they have a really, really solid chance to kind of keep that momentum going. And getting hot in the postseason is a very underrated storyline across all sports. I think teams that are really hot in the playoffs, they have this kind of it factor that just keeps them going and fuels them progressing forward in the postseason. And the Packers definitely have that right now. The Packers did not look as good as they could have looked against the Cowboys. The Cowboys came back towards the end of that game there. But the Falcons looked very consistent. I think they demolished the Seahawks. The game wasn't as close as the score indicated last week. And so it's kind of like you said, strength versus strength, weakness versus weakness. And I'll be very curious to see whether or not, I think what's going to probably come down to is which defense makes the play or two that turns the tide of the respective team. I just don't know who that's going to be right now. No clue. I got nothing.
Yeah. No, and I think that when you look at both of these teams, they're both dealing with some serious injuries in the secondary. You look at the Falcons, they lost Desmond Trufant in the middle of the year. He's one of the best cornerbacks in the league. But the Packers are down Sam Shields. They lost a lot of their depth there, and a lot of people are nicked up. And they also are down to like their 8th string running back. So I think that overall, where the two rosters currently stand, the Falcons have a better offense. I think that their defense is playing better than the Packers is right now, even though I think that the Packers arguably have a little bit more talent. But the Packers defense is built to win with a lead. I think that the Falcons are the team that I wouldn't want the Patriots to have to face. I think that they were 1 or 2 bounces away from, you know, in the regular season from being 13-3. You know, if the official called the flag correctly against the Seahawks, the Falcons would have kicked that field goal. They would have won that game. If the Kansas City Chiefs, if Matt Ryan didn't just have a total mind bomb, if he didn't throw the pick 6, if he didn't throw the pick 2, then they would have beaten the Chiefs. You know, even if it was just one of those went the other way. And so I think that this is a Falcons team that, as you said, they're consistently very, very good. And that's something that the Patriots would not want to see. I think that it's hard to say I would rather face Aaron Rodgers, but I think you look at the supporting casts of both Matt Ryan and Aaron Rodgers and say, I think that Matt Ryan has a better cast.
Interesting. I guess the X factor for me in that regard is just Matt Ryan's postseason pedigree and reputation. A reputation he's doing a very good job of erasing in this campaign, this postseason campaign, but I think, you know, Matt Ryan's never the guy where those morons at the NFL Network or ESPN are having that discussion to generate page views where, you know, you're down by 4 with 2 minutes left. Who do you want to see behind your center, under the center? And it's never Matt Ryan. He's never the guy that anyone really says is the guy that's clutch. He's able to deliver in the postseason when it matters. And Aaron Rodgers, as we've seen time and time again, is that guy. He can deliver. And so I think that the Packers have the ball maybe with 3 or 4 minutes left, down by about 3 or 4 points. I think the Packers will probably pull this one out. It really depends if the Falcons can play with a lead. I think you're absolutely right. The Packers defense is built to play with a lead. I don't know if they can really handle being down 10, 14 points at any point. That might be a backbreaker for them. But again, if Rodgers has the ball and the Falcons allow them to stay in it with a little bit of time left on the clock, get ready for some more ridiculous fireworks. That's my prediction.
Yeah, so this game is set at like 60 plus or minus is the over-under.
Wow.
What is your final score prediction for this game?
I mean, again, I think it's going to be a high-scoring one. Of course, now that I've said that, watch it be like 10-3. But I'm going to go with, honestly, I'm taking the Packers in this game. I think they're going to pull it out. I think on some last-minute nonsense, like I said, I'm going 38-31 to Green Bay.
Oh, that's going to be a high-scoring affair. I think that I'm going to pull the under, but not by much. I think that the Falcons, they're due for a bad game. Not saying them specifically. I'm talking about both Aaron Rodgers and Matt Ryan. They've both been lights out for the best part of the past 10 weeks. So I think that they're going to be a downturn. There's going to be an interception. There's going to be some turnovers just because that's how the playoffs work. And I do think that the Packers are ultimately going to win because you go with the better coach and the better quarterback. in the playoffs. And I'm going with McCarthy and Rodgers. And so I think that the Packers are going to win this one in an upset. The Falcons are anywhere between a 4 to 6 point favorite. But I think that the Packers ultimately win this one, something like 28-24.
That's fair. No, I think I think the Packers is a safe pick. I think it's an easy pick, and I think that's one. I don't know. I personally, I know you'd rather see Aaron Rodgers, but I'd rather see Matt Ryan in the postseason. I'm rooting for the Falcons today. Of course, before I root for the Falcons, we got to get to the Super Bowl, and standing in the way of the Patriots is the Pittsburgh Steelers, and this is going to be a significantly more difficult game than the one last week. If the Patriots offense plays the way it did last week, this will not be a turnout anyone's going to be happy about. They have to turn it around, do a better job, and deliver where they didn't deliver last week. Took a while to wake up. What are your early thoughts, predictions, and overall tone of this game for you, Rich?
I mean, I feel like I've been this way the entire season. I feel very confident that the Patriots are going to do their job. They haven't really let me down at any point this year. There have been moments where I was expecting a little bit more, but if you go look at their 2 losses this year, week 4 against the Bills, they're playing with their 3rd string quarterback who had a broken hand. And if you look at their week 10 loss against the Seahawks, yeah, that was disappointing. That was the first game after Jamie Collins. They weren't using Trey Flowers yet. Kyle Van Noy was not really a part of it. Eric Rowe was not really a part of it. I think that he was benched after one of his performances pre the bye week. I think that this Patriots team is entirely different. We've always been saying that we're looking for what game was the Patriots absolute crap the bed. And we've saying that was last week against the Texans because the offense absolutely crapped the bed. I think that maybe we don't have an overall crap the bed game. I'm saying that a lot. I think that maybe the defense had their bad performance back in week 10 against the Seahawks. The offense had their bad performance this past week against the Texans. And I think that that's out of their system. I think that the defense has been lights out. I think that I'm very confident that the Patriots on both sides of the ball will be able to do their job. Their offense will be able to succeed. They'll be able to pass against the Steelers cover 2 defense. I think that the Patriots match up well against the Steelers offense, much better than they did back in week 7. And so just in general, I think that the Patriots, they're favored by 6 right now. I would say that that sounds about right. But I think that the Patriots are going to win this one, and it might not be a nail biter in the 4th quarter.
Yeah, interesting. It's funny. I think the 2 things that have been brought up by both of us and people around the NFL and around the sports landscape this week has been, one, that the Steelers team goes through Le'Veon Bell. As he goes, so go the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he's been having a postseason for the ages. He's breaking his own records every week, it seems. If he gets going, if he has a 100-plus yard game, Steelers have the exact recipe for success, combined with being able to pressure Tom Brady and force him to play from behind. But if they can play clock-controlled Le'Veon Bell, which they're very capable of doing, could be a very long day for New England. We talked about that. And secondly, if you look at the Patriots and how they've historically kind of owned the Steelers in both the regular season and the postseason, recently, if you look at Gronkowski's statistics against the Steelers, it's remarkable. He goes off almost every time these 2 teams play, at least about 100 yards and a touchdown, bare minimum, every time these 2 teams play. This time they don't have Gronkowski, and he's really been that linchpin that's allowed the entire offense to go against Pittsburgh, regardless of where they're playing, Gillette or Pittsburgh. So that's going to be something to monitor today without Gronkowski, if they can really have that same kind of success. Nobody on the Steelers defense can match up against him. Look for a big day from Martellus Bennett, hopefully, because he's the guy that's probably stepping into those shoes. The only other tight end on the team is Matt Lengel. Don't think he'll be much of a factor in terms of the passing game. So I'm really curious to see if the absence of Gronkowski ends up having that detrimental effect that it could possibly have, missing that, getting 100 yards and a touchdown at least every single week.
No, it's true. So I'm just looking at the stats right now. So Gronkowski has played 5 regular season games against the Steelers. His worst game was a 7-catch, 94-yard, 0 touchdown performance. He's put up 8 touchdowns in those 5 games. He's had 3 touchdown games. My question to you is, after reading this report from Mike Reese this morning about how Martellus Bennett's ankle might require offseason surgery, that the injury that he suffered in week 5 against the Cleveland Browns is worse than everyone kind of realizes, do you think that Bennett will be able to pick up the slack for what we're going to miss with Gronkowski? Is someone else going to do it, and who will that be? Or do you think that the Patriots are just going to completely reinvent themselves?
I think it's the last one, honestly. I mean, Bennett has been good. I don't think he's been this superstar that we were all maybe hoping it would be. But in his defense, he has been injured, and him and Gronk have been on the field at the same time really all season. There's only a handful of plays, legitimately a handful of plays where they were both out there at the same time without one being hurt. So I don't think Bennett and his production this year can really be determined as like a kind of microcosm or macrocosm of what he's going to bring to the table in future years should he stay with the team. But I don't think they can rely on Bennett. I don't think he's going to be the guy this offense goes through this game and future games. I think the real X factor that in general that happens here is the Patriots have a running game now for the first time in a very long time. And when they have a running game, when they have Blunt, Lewis, and James White, they're able to kind of adapt and morph and shift on the fly. And I think that 3 wide receiver set that we've been seeing as of late. It's going to be much more important because the Steelers secondary isn't that great. Malcolm Mitchell is expected to start today, I believe, unless something crazy happened between now and then. Now, the last time I heard, Amendola's healthy, Hogan's healthy, Edelman is fresh off his injury. He's good to go now. He's a very different player than he was when these teams both met in week 7, I think it was. So I think this game kind of goes to the running backs and receivers now, and the tight ends have kind of been relegated a bit to a blocking role and more of an emergency outlet / red zone threat. So I see them kind of doing that instead.
No, I think that's fair. And when you look at the Steelers defense, they rely on the cover 2, which I mentioned earlier. And so what that means is that you have players on the defense, the linebackers and everyone in the secondary is responsible for a certain zone on the field, which means that if the Patriots run a wide receiver on the outside, there's supposed to be one player sitting in that zone to pick them up. When they reach a certain depth, say 10 yards down the field, a safety is supposed to be there to pick them up and start covering them. And I think that the Patriots, where their big advantage is, as you said, had been their tight ends, but right now it is with the running backs. And look at Dion Lewis. He put up 120 yards in his very first game as a member of the New England Patriots in the opener against the Steelers last year. He is very capable of tearing them apart. And why that's important is that the Patriots have running backs that can catch the ball out of the backfield, which can put a lot of stress on the defense. Because, say, theoretically, the Patriots swing one of the running backs off to the sideline, they can double up one of the zones. So that means that they can have a running back and a wide receiver matching up in the same zone as one cornerback. And so, therefore, the cornerback has to make a decision of who am I going to cover? Am I going to cover the running back? Am I going to cover the wide receiver? And that lets Tom Brady have the options. They'll have the number advantage. And what that also can do is draw the linebackers away from the middle of the field. And that's how Gronkowski made his bread. You know, when you had all of this distraction and attention on the sidelines and off away from the middle of the field, then the Patriots can use combination routes where they can put more stress on the opposing defense. And so I think that for me, the X factor is going to be Dion Lewis. I think that he has been such a big part of this Patriots offense down the stretch. He's picked up a lot of slack. I think that we can reasonably rely on wide receiver Julian Edelman to be very, very productive. I mean, honestly, he's had, not even exaggerating, his 2 most productive days of his career over the past 2 games. That's incredible. That's peaking at the right time. So I think that it wouldn't be a shock to say, you know what, we can expect another 100-yard game out of Edelman just because he's become that good and that reliable. But where the Patriots need someone to step up is in the running game. And I think that the Patriots will need someone to do that because that'll take the top off of the Steelers defense. It'll open things up for Chris Hogan down the field. Malcolm Mitchell can start to make some production in the open field. And so I think that what Dion Lewis has to do early, and I think that they'll give Dion Lewis the ball again over LeGarrette Blount. I think that Dion Lewis is going to need to be extraordinarily productive, and he's going to need to have a 100-yard game.
I'm glad you mentioned Malcolm Mitchell, Rich, because while I agree with everything you said, Malcolm Mitchell is my offensive X factor today. Glad that he's back in. I believe he's actually one of the more premier red zone targets for the Patriots over the past couple of games. He's kind of the guy that Brady looks to inside the 20, which is really nice. And again, we saw last week against the Texans, I'm sick of seeing deep balls to Dion Lewis and Julian Edelman. Those guys are not deep threats. Brady can't just huck it up there and hope those guys come down with it. Chris Hogan, I'm fine with. He's a deep threat, but I think Malcolm Mitchell brings a little bit of a different skill set to the offense, and I want to see him continue to run the straight routes, the slant routes. He's good after the catch. He's a great blocking receiver. I think he's going to be very much involved in the offensive scheme today. And if the running game gets going, which I think it will, as you make some good points about, I think there'll be a lot of the middle zones open for Mitchell to feast on those weaker Steelers safeties. So he's my offensive X factor today.
No, that's fair, because I think we have to remember, who is it? The Patriots original Aaron Dobson. Remember when everyone, the future was bright and cheery for him back in 2013? Everyone thought that he would be the Patriots have an answer at wide receiver. that all started because of his performance against the Steelers. He had 5 receptions for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. I wonder if Chris Hogan can do that, but I also believe that Malcolm Mitchell can do a lot to generate that same production. When you have that covers type of defense, the cover 2, you have the defenders with a lot of outside leverage, which means that if you can run the perfect angle towards the inside, you can split the linebacker and the cornerback. And we all know that Malcolm Mitchell's bread and butter is that corner route, that angle, that post. And so I think that Malcolm Mitchell is going to be a big part of this Patriots game on offense. But I do think that Dion Lewis is going to need to be kind of the engine that gets it all going. But looking at the other side of the ball, the Pittsburgh Steelers have, for my money, the best running back in football in Le'Veon Bell. And also, for my money, one of the best wide receivers in the league in Antonio Brown. I honestly think that Julio Jones is probably the only other receiver that I would say is clearly, on a different level, just because he's a total freak. But Antonio Brown is still extraordinarily productive. Do you think that the Patriots match up well against these two players, and do you think that they can stop them?
Well, I can't remember the last time the Patriots allowed a 100-yard rusher. It's been a very long time since that happened. I'm sure you have the stat in front of you somewhere, because that's the kind of guy you are.
C.J. Anderson, Denver Broncos, regular season 2015, and before that, D'Angelo Williams of the Steelers in week 1 of 2015.
So basically, in the last 2 seasons, they've allowed 200-yard games, which is pretty awesome. That's a great run defense. And so obviously the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to want to run the ball, and the Patriots are capable of stopping the run. It's really just a matter of, can they stop Le'Veon Bell today? I think everything depends on that. That game's going to be won and lost in the trenches today, because if they can't stop Le'Veon Bell, as much as I respect Ben Roethlisberger, as much as I respect Antonio Brown, Darius Hayward-Bay, Jesse James, I respect the Steelers receiving corps tremendously. They have a lot of talent, but if they can't run the ball and they become one-dimensional, I don't think they're going to be able to win this game. However, if they can run the ball and throw the ball to Antonio Brown, those guys, they can definitely win this game. I think the Patriots are more than capable of stopping Le'Veon Bell. It's a matter of how much they're going to sell out to do it. And if Mike Tomlin knows they're going to sell out to do it, and he starts to add some new offensive wrinkles to the system that throws people off their game a bit, maybe launches Matt Patricia off his heels a little bit, maybe they're not expecting something, and the Pats have to play catch up. If they do something like that, it could be could bode well for Pittsburgh. But again, I'm also the thoughts, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We're going to run Bell down your throat until you can prove that they can stop him and go from there. So really, what do they decide to do on offense, Pittsburgh? I don't know. No one will. We'll find out in a couple of hours. But if they decide to go with the old tried and true, run it down your throat until you stop it, I think the Patriots can handle that. I do.
No, I think that's fair too, because there was something that Logan Ryan said at one of the press conferences this week that kind of stood out. And he basically said Antonio Brown's going to get his. He's going to be productive. The Patriots' role on defense is whenever he does make a catch, tackle him so he doesn't get any yards after the catch. And I think that means Bill Belichick is preaching that behind the scenes to say, you know what, Antonio Brown is going to pick up some yards. He's going to pick up some catches. Do your best to limit that. And I think what comes with that is a desire to stop Le'Veon Bell. And I've said this before, and I'll keep saying this. The Patriots need to give Le'Veon Bell that Marshall Faulk treatment. Back in the Patriots Super Bowl 36 against the Rams, they hit Marshall Faulk every single time that they could. And I think that we're going to need to see something like that. I think that, as you said, they'll need to sell out to stop the run. It's going to be a calculated risk in the big nickel, because the Steelers rely a lot on their wide receivers and their spread offense, and the fact that Le'Veon Bell can flex out towards the sideline and play like a receiver. But if I'm New England, for my money, I put Patrick Chung, normally in coverage of the tight ends, I put Patrick Chung on Le'Veon Bell and say, we're not going to let Le'Veon Bell generate anything as a receiver. We're going to match everything up. And if you want to beat us, you're going to need to use your Eli Rogers, your Darius Hayward-Bays, and your Sammy Coates. And for me, as a Patriots fan, my concern would be, how and will the Patriots slow down Sammy Coates or Darius Hayward-Bay when you look at the depth at Patriots at cornerback?
No, it's true. Logan Ryan probably had his best game as a Patriot last week against Houston. He was fantastic. I think Malcolm Butler, I know your strategy is to put Logan Ryan with safety help on Antonio Brown and allow Malcolm Butler to match up one of the speedier receivers. I think I want Malcolm Butler on Antonio Brown. Those guys have a nice little rivalry going. They respect each other a lot. They have that commercial. I think I don't know commercial.
It's pretty great.
Yeah, it's a good
Papa
commercial.
John's.
About Papa John's commercial. I think they have a nice rivalry. I like to see them go one-on-one. I don't think Malcolm Butler can necessarily win that battle, but I think he can contain Antonio Brown, who doesn't really kill and cripple the team. I do Logan Ryan I would take the help on Darius Hayward-Bay, because honestly, he's just a deep threat. I don't think he's really a strong receiver in terms of a root tree. He's just a deep threat, and he can go deep, and he's very, very fast. So he's the kind of guy I want to have somebody watching over the top with him. Again, my concern we talked about in our podcast earlier the week, Rich, Jesse James is really concerning to me. He's kind of emerged as a good receiving tight end. The Patriots have had good success, but not great success covering tight ends. And Patrick Chung, who's kind of been the neutralizer of tight ends, is now occupied with Le'Veon Bell. Who does that leave to cover Jesse James? And none of the other cornerbacks have the height or the strength to match up with that kind of guy. So I feel like he's a mismatch if Chung is no longer in the picture in that respect.
No, that's fair. But so if I'm laying out my matchups, and if we're going to go draw Brown, because I'm pretty sure how it's going to play out, we'll see the Patriots in the big nickel, which means that we'll see Chung, McCourty, and Harmon on the field. And then the Patriots are going to have Butler and Logan Ryan out there. I think that Eli Rogers is the Steelers slot receiver. He has 600 yards from scrimmage on the year. I think that the Patriots are going to see if Logan Ryan, who has been their slot receiver over the past few weeks since he was benched, I think that Logan Ryan is going to draw the matchup against Rodgers, because they like how Logan Ryan can play in the slot. Then you have your Butler and possibly Harmon, in my opinion, doubling up against Antonio Brown. I think that you put, as I said, Chung on Bell, but that means that Devin McCourty draws the matchup with Jesse James. And I'm pretty comfortable with that. I think that we've seen it from times over the course of the year and in the past where the Patriots have felt comfortable using McCourty to cover tight ends. It hasn't always worked out well. There are clearly times that stick out where it was like, oh, you're clear. I don't know what's going on here. But that's when he was defending Bills tight end Charles Clay. He's done it time and time again. I think they used it against Gary Barnidge, who was really held down. He was one of the better tight ends last year, but they held him down until like the final drive where he got a lot of garbage yardage. But I think that McCourty will draw it against Jesse James. And I think that there will be a combination of Patrick Chung and a linebacker, probably Kyle Van Noy, that will be asked to cover Le'Veon Bell out in the open. But I just don't feel comfortable with the idea of matching up a linebacker with Bell in the open field. And so if you're Bill Belichick, if you're Matt Patricia, how do you line up your personnel, assuming that you have 5 defensive backs on the field? How do you match up the rest of your personnel to stop the Steelers offense?
No, it's a good question. And it really kind of hinges on if you want to have what you want to assign your safeties. I think talking about the safeties is probably important here. McCourty's, I think, at his best when he has less restrictions, so to speak. He can roam the sidelines, go laterally. He can read the routes and jump them. We saw a great interception he made against, I think it was DeAndre Hopkins last week against Houston. That was a great read. I think that's where he's really at his best. And if he gets straight up assigned to a guy, and Duron Harmon is focused primarily on helping Malcolm Butler, with Antonio Brown, that leaves the back end of the field kind of exposed. The Patriots don't allow big plays. It's kind of their MO. They don't allow big rushes. They don't allow big gains. But if the safeties are occupied elsewhere with their assignments, that leaves the middle of the field and the deep routes. If someone gets behind one of those two guys, that's a home run waiting to happen. Roethlisberger can extend the play. He's very good at that. He's very hard to bring down. He's got a monster arm. And so that's going to be something they have to think about. They might be one of those annoying little things where they give him the Chiefs treatment, death by 1,000 cuts. They keep it all in front of them. They're happy to give Le'Veon Bell, maybe like they did against the Broncos in 2013 or so. I forgot what it was, where Monty Ball rushed for like 255 yards because they gave it to him. They just gave it to him. They allowed those little easy runs, did not allow the passing game to get a rhythm, and they forced people to kind of just play into their hands. I can see them doing that. And if that's the case, yeah, big nickel is the way to go. Dante Hightower, Rob Ninkovich, he's actually my X factor today, Rob Ninkovich. I think he's got the versatility to play on the end, play the linebacker. You can play all over the place. Had a good game against Houston. I think it's going to be all about those guys and what you want to do with your linebackers to ensure that not only are you covering who you need to cover, but you're not giving up the home run as a result. And that's going to be a lot about jamming those middle zones and the read and react style linebacker play where they go to the ball immediately, whether it's Le'Veon Bell, whether it's whoever it may be. It's going to be on those guys. So it's all about kind of the linebackers. Hopefully the linebackers coach had a good coaching session this week because it's going to be on them.
No, that's fair. My original X factor I was thinking might have been Trey Flowers. He's just such a vital part of this Patriots defensive front. There are a lot of players. I was very surprised by this. A lot of Patriots players consider him to possibly be their best defender, which kind of shocks me. But I think that he plays a very important role in both stopping the run and attacking the quarterback. So I think that he's going to be very, very important. But my X factor is actually going to be Eric Rowe. I think that he was someone that I didn't mention giving a matchup. And I think that the Patriots defense and the success will go as far as Eric Rowe takes them, because I think he's going to be the third cornerback on the field. And he's going to be the one that's asked to match up against the Hayward Bays and the Sammy Coates. And I feel pretty confident when I look at all the other matchups, whether I have Patrick Chung and Bell, that you're not going to win that every time, but that's as good as you're going to get. McCourty on James, or even Chung on James. Butler with a double team against Brown, Logan Ryan and Eli Rogers. I feel pretty confident with all of those. Where I don't feel the most confident is with Eric Rowe against those big wide receivers, the Hayward Bays and the Sammy Coates. They're big burners, that they're very, very tall. And if Eric Rowe is able just to swat the ball away time and time again, that will go a long way towards the Patriots eliminating the Steelers' number 5 option in their offense. But that's a big ask. And so that's why Eric Rowe is going to be my X factor.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think the real match, I'm not as confident. I mean, I'm more confident in the Patriots offense versus Steelers defense. I think they have that pretty well in the bag. It's really, can the Patriots defense contain the weapons on the Steelers offense? And the defense is playing lights out right now. So there's good cause for cautious optimism, and there's good cause for just history has both bared well for the Patriots. The Steelers might be a little tired today due to some drunken shenanigans by a Boston fan pulling the fire alarm at 3 o'clock in the morning. That's not, but for those, if anyone watching was talking about how that's just like some new thing, this happens all the time to all over the league. I think it happened to the Patriots 3 or 4 times during Super Bowl week a couple of years ago. People pull fire alarms as part of it. Game's not till 7. It won't really matter too much, but it's really going to be all about, I think that the really fun matchup to me will be the Patriots defense versus Steelers offense. Can they handle it? Is Tom Brady in Big Ben's head? Beating Tom Brady's kind of been an albatross around Big Ben Roethlisberger's neck. He's definitely an Hall of Famer, in my opinion, a great quarterback, but he's never been able to beat Brady in the postseason. Should he do that today, it'll be a nice check mark for him on the resume. And I think no matter what happens, the cool thing about this for me is even if the Patriots were to lose today, which is definitely possible, that means Ben Roethlisberger going to the Super Bowl. I have no problem with that. I like the Steelers. I respect them. I don't want to see them lose. I like Aaron Rodgers a lot. I'd love to see him get into the Super Bowl ring. He's one of the best of all time. I'd love to see Matt Ryan in it because the Falcons, it's a new blood in there. It's a new guy on the Lombardi Trophy. So no matter what the matchups are, obviously Patriots are who I'm rooting for today, but I'm not in this scenario where I've been in the past where it's like Peyton Manning in there again. And it's like I have to root against somebody actively. Like no matter what happens today, I'll be able to live with the result. And that's kind of nice.
That's fair. And so with that, let's move on to our game predictions. Alec, what is your prediction for the score today?
Yeah, I think this game's going to be closer than Patriots-Steelers games of yore. I think it might come down to a fourth quarter kind of Steelers having the ball, need to score to tie it, and the Patriots force a big turnover or a 4-and-out to seal the game with the defense. I think they do enough to win. I don't think it's ever going to be a point where the Patriots pull away, and it's not going to be very fun to watch, unfortunately. But the Patriots do pull this one out. I'm going 31 New England, 24 Pittsburgh.
Yeah, so for those that are wondering, the over-under on this one is 50. The Patriots are favored by 6. I think that this is a game, as you said, it's going to be closer. That's just the way that postseason games work, unless you're playing the Houston Texans or the Tim Tebow Broncos. But I think that the Patriots, they are an astounding 14-3 against the spread this year. And in reality, they're more like 14-2-1 because the other time was against the Jets, where they kind of split it depending on who you're looking at. I think that the Patriots are going to win this. I think they're going to win it by a touchdown. And I think that this is going to be a game where the Patriots are pretty comfortable. Maybe the Steelers get a last gasp touchdown. It happened a couple years ago against the Steelers. And so I think that the Patriots win this one, but it'll be something like 28-20.
28-20. Good prediction. I like it. Interesting. Should be a really good game. Good week of football. Good weekend of football. Let's try to enjoy these last 2 games, because this time next week, it's going to be the Pro Bowl. No one cares about that. And then it's Super Bowl, and that's the offseason. And so it's this last kind of bite of the sandwich, so to speak. So savor every last little morsel of it.
No, absolutely. And so Patriots play tonight at 6:40. It will be on CBS. They're actually live streaming it on cbssports.com. So that should be something of interest to you guys. Come by patspulpit.com for more information and Patriots news. Alec, we'll meet again this upcoming week to discuss the results. But until then, you have a good one.
You too, buddy.
Later.